We start with the carbon half. The first thing to do is to put a 2 in front of the CO2. If you don't do this, then you end up adding a whole bunch of water and hydrogens, and you end up with electrons on the same side in both half reactions. The electrons have to be on the left in 1 because that's gaining electrons, it's reduction, and on the right in the other half where it's oxidation, loss of electrons. So if they're on the same side, you have a problem and you have to go back and check and fix it. So here, once we multiply by 2, all we need is 2 electrons to balance this half. Over here, we have nitrous acid goes to NO, so we add water to get 1 more oxygen, then we add 1 hydrogen ion because I already had 1 here, and then I add 1 electron. 2 electrons in this half, 1 electron here. I multiply this half by 2, then add them back together, cancel out 2 electrons from each side, and I get oxalate plus 2 hydrogens plus 2 HNO2 yields 2 CO2 plus 2 NO plus 2 waters. So it takes some practice, and the key is going through those steps in the order of the steps. Now, the next thing that we do is to balance in basic solution instead of balancing them in acid. So to balance in base, we do the same steps. We balance in acid and then switch it to base. And in order for that to work, you have to understand some acid-base chemistry. If we are acidic, we have loose hydrogen ions. If we're basic, we have loose hydroxide ions. When we're neutral, they have hooked up and they made water. So you need to understand that hydrogen ions plus hydroxide ions make water. So to balance on paper, if we go through the process in acid, and then we add hydroxide ions to both sides, the side of the equation with the free hydrogen ions, they will react and make water, and we can cancel that out. So we follow steps 1 through 8 and balance in acid. We look at the equation, we see how many hydrogen ions there are on one side of the equation. We add that number of hydroxides to both sides. We combine the hydrogen and hydroxide that are on the same side and make water, and then we subtract out whatever water appears on both sides. So again, it makes more sense to look at this in terms of an example. So we'll balance these in base. We start off the same way. Split the equation into 2 halves. So permanganate yields MnO2. And oxalate yields carbonate. So now we're going to balance the manganese half. 1 manganese, 1 manganese. 2 oxygens, 4 oxygens. Add 2 waters. 4 hydrogens, no hydrogens. Add 4 hydrogen ions. Evaluate charge. +4 and a -1 is a +3, 0. Add 3 electrons. I now have a balanced half. 2 carbons, 1 carbon. Put a 2 in front of the carbonate. 6 oxygens, 4 oxygens. Add 2 waters. 4 hydrogens, no hydrogens. Add 4 hydrogen ions. Now evaluate charge. 2 times a -2 is a -4, and a +4 is 0. And over here I have a -2. So add 2 electrons to the right-hand side. Now when I look at this, I have 3 electrons in one half and 2 electrons in the other half. So I'll multiply my manganese half by 2, multiply my carbon half by 3, and add them back together. 2 times 3 electrons is 6 electrons, plus 8 hydrogen ions, plus 2 permanganate. Now add in the reactants from the carbon half. Plus 3 times 2 is 6 waters, plus 3 oxalates. Yields 2 MnO2 plus 4 waters plus 6 carbonate plus 12 hydrogens plus 6 electrons. So now I look at this and say, okay, what can I cancel out from both sides? Well, I have 6 electrons on each side, 8 hydrogens on the left, 12 hydrogens on the right, so I'll cancel 8 hydrogens. 6 waters and 4 waters, I can leave me 2 waters on the left. So now I look at what's left. 2 permanganate plus 2 waters plus 3 oxalates yields 2 MnO2 plus 6 carbonates plus 4 hydrogens. Now at this point I should have a balanced equation in base, but you saw how I was adding and flipping things around. It's real easy to make a mistake. So always stop here and check. 2 manganese, 2 manganese. 2 times 4 is 8 oxygens, plus 2 is 10, and 12 is 22. 4 plus 18 is 22. 2 times 2, 4 hydrogens, 4 hydrogens. 6 carbons, 6 carbons. So now I have a negative 2. 3 times a negative 2 is a negative 6, and a negative 2, my charge is negative 8. And I have 6 times a negative 2 is a negative 12, plus 4 is a negative 8. So I managed to get through that without messing anything up, which sometimes you don't get through it. Now we'll switch it to base. I have 4 hydrogens on the right-hand side. So I add 4 hydroxides to both sides. Now these combine and make 4 waters on the right. Because I had 4 hydrogens and 4 hydroxides on the right, so it made 4 waters. Now when I look at this, I have 2 waters on the left and 4 waters on the right, so I can cancel out 2 waters, leaving me 2 waters on the right. Now let's rewrite it and see what's left. 4 hydroxides plus 2 permanganate plus 3 oxalate yields 2 MnO2 plus 6 carbonate plus 2 waters. Now hopefully I didn't miss anything when I was rewriting all this. This is why you always go back and check. 4 oxygens, 2 times 4 is 8 and 4 is 12, plus 12 is 24 oxygens. 4 plus 18 is 22, plus 2 is 24 oxygens. 4 hydrogens, 2 times 2, 4 hydrogens. 2 manganese, 2 manganese. 6 carbons, 6 carbons. Now look at the charge. A negative 4 minus 2 minus 6 is equal to a negative 12. 6 times a negative 2 is a negative 12. So I balanced it in base without messing anything up. Okay? It's not always easy to do.